What is up, all my ex-drinking buddies? Thank you so much for listening to the episode this week. Very special guests. My older sister, Emily Tasseff, joins the podcast. We're going to talk all sorts of crazy stories. Up top, I did want to say thank you, everybody, for listening. Please subscribe to the Patreon, patreon.com/Brennan Tasseff. Get the episodes early. Get bonus episodes. After a few months at the top tier, we will do a mini ex-drinking buddy episode with you personally. Also, you can get ex-drinking buddy merch at the website, brennantcomedy.com/merch store. I hope you all enjoy the episode. It is a little personal, close to my heart. In the middle of the move right now, so we will get some more comedians, musicians, all sorts of crazy characters back on the program. But this week is extra special because it is my family. Enjoy the show.
Grab me a beer and grab him a coke. We bout to sit for an hour, bullshit and tell jokes. And please don't mix it up, cause he done sobered up. Brandon T Comedy on your social media feeds. And Brandon Tasseff is your ex-drinking buddy. Brandon Tasseff is your ex-drinking buddy. Brandon Tasseff is your ex-drinking buddy. Brandon Tasseff is your ex-drinking buddy.
I don't talk very loud, I guess. I do talk loud, but
You do, but you're holding back. You're being
because I need a beer.
Tasseff. Do you want a beer?
No, I'm good.
I got White Claws. I got beers. I got wine.
No, I'm good. I'm not drinking in front of you.
This would be a lot more fun if you were.
I mean, I could go in the bathroom and chug one real quick, like olden days.
So you see how this is doing this?
Yeah.
That means it's recording.
Oh, great.
So I'm keeping that clip in there. There you go. So you're getting the hang of it. All right, you ready?
Yeah.
3, 2. What's up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Brennan Tasseff is your ex-drinking buddy. I'm your host, Brennan Tasseff. If you're new to the show, quick rundown of the show. One of my favorite things to do when I was out drinking, partying, doing drugs, getting in trouble was to hang out.
Sorry. I didn't know I could. I forgot I was on the thing. Okay. Okay, I'm done. I promise.
Good? Just let me get through 30 seconds of the intro.
I need a mute
And
button.
you can cough all you want. What's up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of Brennan Tasseff is your ex-drinking buddy. I'm your host, Brennan Tasseff. If you are new to the show, quick rundown of the show. I will normally be joined by a guest. This week is no different. First time on Ex-Drinking Buddy, my older sister, ladies and gentlemen, Emily Tasseff.
It's an honor and a privilege.
Now, want to let the listeners know, we invited Emily to be on the show, one, because she would have a couple drinks and be like, I used to do the podcast from my work. I'd be so good at it. And two, because Emily also lives in Jacksonville, where I currently am before the move. And she's been around for some crazy shenanigans of mine. So we wanted to kind of talk about some of those stories. Those are some of my favorite stories. Well, favorite's a relative term. Those are some of the most interesting stories, I should say, that I have. So I wanted to bring Emily on to share about them. So Emily, say hello to all the ex-drinking buddies.
Hi, everybody. It's great to be here. Also, you forgot one thing. It's because you also love me very much.
Yes, I do love you very much. Make sure we're getting your levels right, Em.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, talk in your normal speaking voice. The speaking voice you were just talking in. That was perfect.
Okay.
There we go. All right. So Emily doesn't have anything to plug because she's a normal human being. She's not an actor or a musician or a comedian or anything like that. You work a regular job.
I am lame.
In a regular office. One of my favorite things, quotes, I guess, was anytime Emily does something relatively stupid, she'll always be like, oh, put that in your comedy act. And then my response is always, Emily, you go to the gym, go to work, and go home. What am I going to put in the act about that?
It's a fulfilling life, okay?
But you are the most stable of the 4 kids, for sure.
No comment.
Yeah, we gotta. Emily does work in the corporate world, so it's not going to get as involved on her end. But she's here to add kind of commentary to some stories. And I am moving to New York City, as you know, listeners. So this will be one of the last times we get to hang out for a while. We're probably going to do dinner before I actually leave, but I figured this would be a fun thing to do.
I'm excited.
Yeah, so Emily is 2 years older than me, correct?
1
Yes.
year and 9 months.
Yes, there you go. 1 year and 9 months. So you guys can do the math. You guys know how old
There
I
was
am.
3 of us in diapers at the same time.
Yes. So for those of you listening, the family consists of our eldest brother, Ryan, who's 6 years older than me, 4 years older than Emily. Then it was Emily, and then me and Hannah are twins. Hannah and I are twins. And Emily, do you think it would be safe to say we come from a pretty fun family, pretty fun loving, I want to say heavy drinking, but I know
We're very cultured.
Yeah, there you go. I know you're trying to tiptoe around that. And by cultured, she means Eastern Europe, where we drink a lot. Hey, look, see how I did that? I'm such a good fucking host. So, growing up was interesting with Emily. Emily and I, we weren't the best of friends growing up. Didn't get along super well, but I was also a loner. Didn't really get along with anybody in the house. But I wanted to have you on, so we're going to fast forward. We're going to fast forward to now. I'm getting older. You went to UNF. Huge shout out, Joe Dorville, shadow producer of the show, co-host of Cheers from the Press Box, also an Osprey, right? That's
Swoop.
Yeah, there you go. That's for you, Joe. I know you're listening. So you went to UNF. You graduated in 2009 from college?
2008.
2008. And then
You
you ended
just
up,
aged me.
Yeah. Well,
That's
I
okay.
I said 1 year, 9 months and they know how old I am. I talk about my sobriety constantly.
Perfect.
So when you graduated, you decided to stay in Jacksonville. Was that a conscious choice or?
I got lucky and the economy had tanked and I found a job somehow. So
Okay.
I've stayed in Jacksonville and...
That's not the same place you're at now, is it?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No.
I can never remember.
No, I worked for a company for about 3 years and then I went nonprofit for a year.
That's okay.
And now I work for a different company.
A very profit company.
A good company to work for.
There you go. Hey-oh, keeping it clean. But what? So you just decided, just because of the job situation, you decided to stay?
Yeah, I'm not very risk adverse, and
To say the slightest.
I wanted to get on my feet, and I was fortunate enough to find a job, and then another one, and I love what I do now, and
So you do marketing.
marketing and education.
Okay. And it's interesting. I find this fascinating, and we'll get into the drinking. Trust me, we've got plenty of drinking stories.
I was going to say you're boring them right
They're
now.
mainly my drinking stories, but
People can look
I'm
me up
really
on LinkedIn and figure all this
Okay.
out.
No. Fuck that. It's my show. I've actually, the last couple of episodes, I've been saying like, no, it's my show. I'm going to do what I want. And then I've slowly been losing listeners. So I'm like, maybe I should not do that. But whatever. I don't care. I just find it fascinating because when I was done with school and I moved back into mom's, I had so many friends that stayed, like they got lucky and found jobs and stayed in the area or moved just because of their job, which I always thought was so interesting because it was less about like, well, now I'm done with college, like I have the rest of my life. I'm going to pick where I want to live and then I'll find a job there. It's very much the opposite.
Yeah.
Of
Well,
my
again,
life
the
will be
economy was
dictated.
tanked.
Yeah.
So and in hindsight, I should have like traveled for a year or two. But then again, I was broke with student loans. So
Yeah.
there's that.
Yeah, that's true. All right. Well, while you're living in Jacksonville, your baby bro, me, I came to visit you a few times. So those are some of the stories that I wanted to get into. This is a little weird just because normally like I have a list from the guest and then like I kind of lead into it, but because I'm the one, they're my stories and I'm the one leading into it, it almost feels like I'm being a mic hog, which I don't want to be. So if you have anything to add, you just jump right in.
Oh, I will.
All right, cool. So remember when I came up for my birthday, we went to Jazz Fest at the Landing. Rest in peace, the Landing. You got me that hamburger cake.
Yeah,
What
I
year
remember
was
that.
Was that
Oh,
my
God.
22nd birthday, 23rd birthday? So we're going to go back. There was, for those of you listening, due to the magic of editing, I just took out a whole bunch of errors and mistakes that we were trying to match up the timeline. But it's not important. Timeline is not important at all. What is important is I came to visit you. It was for a birthday. and we were staying at your apartment. And I remember we were down by the pool, and I know I was over 21 because I remember we did a bunch of legal drinking stuff. Like we went to bars and we did a putt and crawl, which in Jacksonville beaches is a thing where the bars all along the beach will set up makeshift like putt course kind of holes in the bar. And you get a wristband, then you go to the bar, you get like super cheap drinks, and then you like do the putt course. And you go all on the bar. So I remember doing that, which was fun.
I remember that one because I pretended to get a hole in one when nobody was looking, and I got a prize for it.
Oh, did you? Oh, yeah. I do remember that.
I was competitive, man.
Yeah, that is one thing about you and I do have very much in common is our competitive nature. I remember doing that, and then I remember getting mad because a lot of the deals were just on beer, and I had like no money at the time, and I was like, "What the shit, man?" Like I thought I was going to be able to do shots because as the listeners know, I don't really drink beer, and then. I remember we did spend a day at the pool, like hanging out with your boyfriend at the time and his friends. And that was interesting because let's just say his friends didn't seem like the warmest fellows. But I was so much younger than, not so much, but I was younger than him and his friends and stuff. So I was trying to be like cool. So I was like trying to get engaged, you know me, always the attention seeker, trying to get engaged with their conversations. And they were just kind of like, yeah, man, like, all right, whatever. And I remember that daytime fun, because I stayed at your place for a couple of days, that went into the night, and we were all just kind of drinking and having a good time. And I remember that day I ended up drinking like way too much. And this was when I was going through my super aggressive, like, it's almost like a frat boy kind of a phase where like I would get like a headbutt shit and like try to break stuff and all that kind of shenanigans.
It was a cluster, to say nicely.
Yeah, it was bad. So I ended up drinking. This might have actually, now that I'm thinking about it, been way after. This might have been like 24th, 25th birthday.
I think you are maybe combining them a little bit.
I might be. There might be a couple different things happening. But this all happened with you in Jacksonville. So whatever. But
I also remember it as one big blur. So
yeah, absolutely. And I just remember from some of the pictures we have of the putt and crawl, I was like super fat. That's one of the pictures I use when I do my Transformation Tuesday whatever post. It's that picture from the putt and crawl because I was so fat. So it would have been after football, it would have been after all of that. So I do remember I got way too drunk, and then I remember I was kind of getting fed up with your boyfriend at the time and his friends, not your boyfriend, but his friends not like accepting me into their little like clique. So I remember like getting loud and like headbutting the concrete wall outside and like threatening to jump off the balcony. Do you remember any of this?
Oh, I remember you hitting the concrete wall because I was like, you're going to die. And I was trying to stop you. And
I kept like threatening to fight them. I was like, you guys want a piece
I'm like,
of
stop
me?
banging your head.
And then like the whole party blew up. And then I remember those guys ended up leaving, and then I like sat on the couch and cried. Did my usual nobody likes me.
Yeah.
I have no friends, which is...
We tried to calm you down a little bit.
Yeah.
Didn't work.
For those of you listening...
Is that the same time you tried to also pretend like you were going to jump off the balcony?
Yeah, that's...
Okay.
Yeah, I just said that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You said sat on the couch, I thought. Sorry.
No. Before, I said I was banging my head on the concrete and threatened to jump off the balcony.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so...
That was a fun night.
Yeah, for those of you listening, that used to be my go-to because I didn't have a lot of friends growing up. Emily and Hannah, my twin, were the popular ones. And Ryan, everyone in my family was super popular except me. But because I didn't have a lot of friends and I was always super fat and out of shape until I started playing, I really didn't get into shape until I started playing like college football. But I used to always live by this mantra where I'd start crying and be like, everyone hates me, nobody likes me. And that went well into my late 20s.
That was literally a saying that we had for you when you were a baby. Or not a baby, but a kid. Like, oh, woe is me. Nobody likes me. Everybody hates me.
Everybody hates me.
I mean, since you were a little kid.
Yeah. And I still feel that way when I do comedy and I bomb and I go, everyone still fucking hates me.
Or when I talk through your whole set.
Yeah. Everybody check out that clip on social media. That was fun. That was actually a lot of fun, though. But yeah, so I remember crying on the couch. I'm sorry. And then I think it was just over with. So in our family, we're very good about sweeping things under the rug.
Oh, yeah.
So,
we're avoiders.
Yeah, very much so avoiders. So basically, and it's actually, I don't know if this has happened with you, but it's actually sunk into my other relationships. So like if Savannah and I get into an argument, we'll get into like a big blow up fight, and then like an hour later, I'm like, "Hey babe, what do you want for dinner?" And she
Yeah,
goes, "Don't
yeah.
fucking hey babe me."
Yeah. I'm very much an avoider. I'll have my little hissy fit, and then I'll come back an hour later like, hey, so what's up?
Yeah. And so a lot of people, they don't like that. They don't encourage that.
No,
They
I'm
don't
learning
enjoy
that in my
Me too.
30s. I'm
Me too.
learning to communicate, and that's not the appropriate way to behave.
Yeah, so because I do it I have to apologize at least once a week at my job, which we don't mention here, but everyone knows I work in a nice restaurant. Because if I get like 3 crappy tables in a row, I'll start stomping my feet, threatening to quit. Like I'm gonna like screw all of like the management sucks. Like what the hell's going on? And then like 20 minutes later, I'm like, hey guys, what are we doing about blah 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 this weekend? And they're like, what?
I go into shutdown mode. I all of a sudden don't want to talk to you. I'm going to do the silent treatment. I'm going to walk away, and then I'm going to come back and act like I'm your best friend.
Yeah. So okay, that's not just me.
I'm a little passive aggressive.
Yeah, I'm super passive aggressive. I put the aggressive and passive aggressive, but okay, so that's not something that's just unique to me and our family. And it's interesting because after that night, literally it was like nothing had ever happened. Like it was like, okay, like that was just drank a little too much.
Yeah, we get over it.
Yeah, which is actually something that I enjoy, that I really like about our family dynamic, is the fact that that's just it. Like we'll get over stuff.
Yeah, we're still
like,
family.
quickly.
It's fine.
Yeah.
The next day we love each other, you know?
Yeah, and that's the thing is like I'll hold on to a grudge. Like I hold on to grudges a lot, but you'll never, like people will never know that. Like I'll be like, yeah, we're good, like whatever. But then if I start thinking about it, I'll start to get riled up. But I'm normally like, oh, yeah, we're good.
I just tend to block everything out and forget everything because I don't want to hold any grudges.
Well, drinking helps with that. But I did. So that was an interesting night. That was probably. I remember we went to the Jazz Fest, and I remember like dancing and like having a good time. And they, I remember it so romantically, like it was so much fun. And then when I first moved to Jacksonville, when I was still dating Alyssa, I was like, we got to go to the Jazz Festival. It's so fun. And so we went there, and I was like, this is a disaster. Like it was terrible. At that
I
point,
love jazz, but you know, some of them are not the best.
well, and not only that, but at that point, the landing was overrun with
Yeah,
like,
the landing had some
issues. It was a lot of shady people, a lot of homeless people. It was more people that you were kind of like, oh, they're not here for the festival, than people actually there for the festival by the time we went.
Yeah.
So, and obviously the city understood that. That's why they destroyed the landing. But
and if you're not drinking or having at least a few beers,
it's kind of,
you really start to realize what's going on.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too is it was interesting because when Alyssa and I first got together, I was sober. I had just gotten out of rehab. And so there were certain things that I was trying to do in Jacksonville, because I went to rehab in Jacksonville and then I was living here. There were certain things
I
that
remember picking you up at the airport.
Yeah. Oh, let's talk about that. Great segue, Emily. But yeah, it was interesting because there are things you have to relearn how to do sober. Like I hadn't gone to the movie sober in years.
Oh wow.
I hadn't had a night at the house just by myself sober like ever. So it was interesting to try to relearn those things. And then going out like to the Jazz Fest, it was kind of like, I remember this being a lot more fun. But yeah, so Emily, the saint that she is.
Oh no.
If I could quote True Romance here, Emily, the fuckhead that she is. We 2013, you guys have all heard the story about how I went to rehab. I called the number on the back of the insurance card. They hooked me up. Well, first I called my mom crying, saying I can't stop drinking. And then she told me to call the number on the back of the insurance card. And they hooked me up with Lakeview. Shouts out Lakeview.
Didn't Hannah help you too with that or no?
She might have. The way I remember it was calling mom. But I'm sure Hannah helped too. Shout out to Hannah. She doesn't get enough credit. But I remember calling the number and they hooked me up with Lakeview. So mom turned around and booked me a flight for the next day to get here. And I remember I was living in Oklahoma City at the time and you were living in Jacksonville. And I was like, oh, I'm going to Jacksonville. So I don't know.
Side note, Brennan is extremely scared of flying.
Yeah, horrifically terrified.
So I was like, this is going to be fun. He's going to be tanked when he gets here.
Yeah. So fun fact with that. So I've got a layover in Dallas. I'm flying out of Oklahoma City, layover in Dallas, and then I'm coming into Jacksonville. And I don't know if mom called you or if I called you or who called you, but you were like, yeah, I'll pick you up from the airport. And I was like, bring me like some shitty food because I'm going to go into this rehab where it's going to be like all cafeteria food. So I asked you to bring me McDonald's.
I remember. I was like, out of all things that you want, this is your last meal, and you want McDonald's.
And I was really out of shape.
And I would have brought you anything.
I know. And I was really out of shape at the time. I was a mess. So I remember being in Oklahoma City and having to get on the flight. I had the girl I was seeing at the time take me to the airport. This is when I was living with cousin Tommy. Shouts out Tom Joyce. And I remember I had probably, for the listeners, maybe an inch and a half left in my handle of Sailor Jerry.
Wow.
And I remember just like chugging that at like 6 a.m. like, on the way to the airport. And then the girl that I was seeing was very much like, you're not going to, like, she knew I drank a lot, but she didn't understand. She's like, you're not going to drink out of that bottle in my car. So I had to like pour it into a cup. And I was like trying, and there wasn't very much, like an inch and a half isn't very much liquor in the bottom of a handle. So I'm like chugging it because I cannot fly. I could not stand flying. I've gotten a lot better in my sobriety flying because, you know, I have to. Between comedy and everything, like I'm forced to fly. So it's like, well,
and your dopamines aren't as messed up.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't
yeah.
have
I'm not
depleted
all over the place.
Yeah.
So, but I'm the kind of guy when I say I don't like flying, it's not like, oh, I'm kind of nervous. Like, I look out the window, and if the wing kind of shakes a little, I'm like, we're all going to die. Wing's going to fall off. We're all dead.
Family trips to Ohio were the most fun with
I used to
T.
like bury myself in the chair, like get
horrible.
as low down as I could. I used to
travel agents or not agents, like what are they?
Flight attendants.
Yeah, flight attendants would be trying to like distract you, and you would be crying.
Yeah,
it was embarrassing.
Hated flying, but I wasn't hammered enough. So when I first started, I've only flown a few times since I've been 21. So the couple times that I did fly when I was drinking, like if I got drunk enough, I loved it. I was like, oh my God, I'm not worried about anything. Like I'm going to get up and walk around. Like, yeah. But I remember getting on this flight and I wasn't drunk enough. And I was like, fuck. Now I'm like half drunk, but half terrified. And I'm trying to get the flight attendant to bring me more liquor, which I think she did because I think I did that. I pulled the cry before the flight even takes off. I'm 25 years old, and I'm like crying, like, you don't understand, my anxiety's so bad. So I think they walked me down a couple of minis because I've done that in the past. I have shared that on the show.
Guilted them in
where
there.
I've guilted them into bringing me some minis, some Jack minis. And I remember we flew to the airport, but this was the thing. So Lakeview had a driver that would pick you up. Because it's a rehab. So a lot of people get sent there that don't want to go, but they go because they feel like they have to. But as soon as they land, they just they vanish.
Yeah.
So they have a driver come get you. And it's not like, don't think like town car driver. It's like a fucking shitty, like
3
super
wheels
old.
on it.
Yeah, it's not a super nice car. I mean, it's not a bad car, but it's not like, I'm not getting picked up in a limo or a town and country or something. So you came to the airport. I remember I met you. You had McDonald's for me, and we just kind of hung out. But you weren't even able to take me to rehab. It was just kind of like, all right, well, cool.
Yeah, I mean, I was like, okay, McDonald's. I'll bring you McDonald's. And then we just sat there and you ate, and then it was bye.
Yeah. What was that? So I wanted to get your perspective on this because you are my older sister, and you and Hannah used to always yell at people for bullying me on the school bus, and you guys have always been very protective, and it's interesting because I'm like twice the size of anyone in the family, but I'm the biggest baby out of everyone in the family. So what was that like when you see me get off the plane? Did you have like oh my God, what's wrong with my brother? Or, oh, Brennan's just trying to get attention because I've been known to do that as well? Or what was your thought? Truthfully,
no,
like,
you have mixed feelings about stuff like that. So one is heartbreak, and then the other is I'm so glad that he actually followed through and that he's actually doing this.
Okay.
And one is hope. Another emotion is hope that you're going to actually do what you say you're going to do, but then a lot of doubt in the fact that that's actually going to work. But at the same time, you got to live in that moment and just be like, and when I wish you wanted something better than McDonald's, but then when you were eating McDonald's, I was like, I'm so glad that he's following through with this. Like, that's a strong person. Obviously, it was a lot more of a bumpy road after that, but
oh yeah,
I was proud of you.
Aww.
That was probably my biggest thing. I was proud of you, and I didn't care to drive wherever I needed to just to bring you some McDonald's.
Some sweet McDonald's,
and I was
quarter
still
pounder,
disappointed
baby.
in your choice, but
okay, yeah, because that's interesting. Because being on the other side of it, as someone who's, like you said, it became a very bumpy road. You know, I got almost a year sober that first time.
Yeah.
I went to Lakeview, and as a competitive person, I was like, no, fuck this. Like, I'm going to do this the right way. Like, fuck everybody. Because I know for a fact that there's people in my life and people in our family who were like, there's no way he's going to stay sober. Like, you're out of your mind. And I know that to be true, which is fine. But in my head, it was very much like, well, I'm going to show them.
Yeah.
Like, which is the biggest issue, because anybody who gets sober for other people won't stay sober.
Yeah.
You have to get sober for yourself. And in my experience, that's what I've learned. So the first time I went there, I knew I had to get sober because my life was falling apart. And not just financially, like lying to work or quitting jobs or getting fired, but like emotionally, I've always been a very emotional person. And now it was 1,000 times worse. So I was like, I need to fix this. So I go there and I get almost a year sober, which was interesting because my twin sister, our sister, got married in that year.
Yeah.
So I remember going to her wedding 6 months sober. And that
you
was
did
like
good at her wedding too.
Yeah, I did great. And that was a big deal because everyone was fucking hammered. I remember Steve came up to me. For those of you listening, that's my mom's husband. He came up to me and he had a couple of pops. And he was telling me, and I do this bit on stage, so I don't mind saying it here, but he was like, you know, Brennan, the trick to staying sober. And I was like, yeah, you're going to tell me the trick to staying sober? He's like, it's all about willpower. If you ever have any issues, you just call me. And I'm like, yeah, call you? The hammered guy, call you. But, yeah, I had met Alyssa. I started working at the Good Food Company, which went out of business, and then I went to Outback, and I met Alyssa, and her and I started dating. I was living in the halfway house after rehab. Hannah got married, wasn't it in February?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I had 6 months sober at that point. And then the listeners know this, and I'm sure I've told you this, but then fast forward 2 weeks before I get my 1 year chip, I have my own apartment now. Alyssa and I are doing great. And I turned to my roommate, and we basically were sitting out on the balcony smoking cigarettes and convinced each other that we had overreacted. Because it's a crazy thing to think about. If you obviously not as an alcoholic, it might not be something that you ever even think of. But to say, okay, we're going to stop drinking and using drugs, everything, at 25, turning, at this point, I think I was just now about to be 26. That's a very cold reality.
Yeah. It's hard to face, I would imagine.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's like, and this is why they say one day at a time.
Yeah.
Because if you start future tripping, as a very funny comedian Ryan Sickler puts it, if you start thinking about, oh my God, like I won't be able to drink at my own wedding. I won't be able to ever drink on a birthday. I won't be, now I've got enough sobriety to where that stuff doesn't bother me anymore. But at the time, I didn't even have a year. And I started thinking about all these things, and there's a saying in sober circles that my worst day sober is better than my best day drunk. And I always think like, you guys are fucking losers. Like, I had awesome days drunk. Like, the bowl game, when I played college football, like, being in New Orleans, the first bowl game we went to, and being able to, like, walk the street and drink, even though I was a little underage, and, like, do all that stuff. Like, I had awesome times drinking.
Yeah.
So, to be sitting out there, and it's so interesting because you lived right down the street from me at the time, and Billy, my uncle, and his wife were right up the road. My grandmother was here. I had so many people I could call and be like, hey, I'm not doing so hot. Like, I need someone to come, like, bail me out of this. And what I've now discovered 3 years sober is that those thoughts will pass. What I did not know at the time was I thought, I'm going to feel like this forever.
Yeah.
So we should go drink.
Well, and it doesn't help that you have somebody else that you're talking to about it and they're encouraging it. And
yeah, we were encouraging each other.
Yeah.
It's both of our faults. And we were like, yeah, we did overreact. Like, we can handle this. And Alyssa, which I think I've mentioned before, had no idea what alcoholism was. Everyone thinks they know. Like, everyone thinks they have an idea of what it is, but you have no idea until you see it.
You don't, yeah. I honestly had no idea until I've seen people go through it.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's one of those things where I know you and I joke about it, but you're like, God, I drink too much. And I'm like, no, you don't. Like, my drinking, not immediately, but it was 2 weeks before my 1 year chip. I relapse, and everything's fine for the first couple of months. Like, I'm still working. Everything's going all right. But then it spirals out. It gets worse, never better, as it says in the book. And it starts to spiral out of control. And that was interesting. So, and I know I've told that story before, but I just wanted to bring that up because now, like I said, you're right down the street from me, and we don't see each other very often because you've got work, and we have work opposite schedules. But do you have any recollection? And if you don't, it's fine because I'm selfish, so I think everyone thinks about me. But do you have any recollection of when you found out that I had fallen off the wagon?
Which time?
The very first time. Like when I go to rehab, I get almost a year sober, and everyone's like, holy shit, Brendan was sober at Hannah's wedding. Like, I can't believe it. He's been sober this whole time. And then do you recall when, like, you found out, like, oh shit, like Brendan's drinking again?
So it's hard because some of it is a blur for me, and the most memorable one is the last time, which was around your birthday.
Yeah. So for those of you listening, I have gotten probably a dozen white chips where I would get sober for a couple months and then fall off and then sober for a couple months. But the first time and the last time I got sober were the two longest stretches I had been sober.
And there was also stints in between of like not being able to get a hold of you and stuff like that. But I don't have a completely, if you jogged my memory, I'd probably remember, but I don't have a completely, I can't tell you which exact time or what exactly happened for me to find that out.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. But
because there's so many different stories.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was, I remember drinking that day and I got really sick and then I had to go to work the next day and I don't know how I made it through work, but everyone knew I was sober at work. So like I didn't get in any kind of trouble. I was just like, I don't feel well. And they're like, oh, he must just be sick because Brendan doesn't drink. Is that
when you passed out at work?
No, that was in Oklahoma when that happened.
Okay.
I had a seizure at work, and that was in Oklahoma.
Yeah, I remember because I was doing a 5K that day.
Yeah, I had a seizure at work.
And it was a beer run, to be honest with you.
Was it?
I felt awful.
Yeah, I had a seizure at work in Oklahoma, and then ended up passing out, and that was a whole thing. But that was also due to, obviously, my drinking. But we got through it. We're here now.
Yeah.
Sober.
We're here.
3 years. Coming up. Oh no, it just came up on 3 years. So that's pretty cool. What do you remember about Betsy?
I was going to say, side note, I want to talk about Betsy.
No, we're going to talk about it right now. So for those of you listening, Betsy was Emily's Cavalier that she had through college.
Yeah. I got it on my own.
Yeah.
Actually, let me thank Uncle Billy because he did help me find it and he helped me get it and everything like that.
Yeah. Shouts out Uncle Billy. He gets a lot of shouts out on this.
And I used some of my
student loan money
that I had. And I got Betsy and I had her for a long time and I saved up some money and I had gotten
hang on, side note, is that not the right thing? Was I not supposed to use my student loan money for everything else?
I don't know what you're allowed to use your student loan money for.
So, first of all, fuck that and
I
fuck
used
them.
mine for books
why?
School.
You know why? Fuck them? Because when I went to the financial
and lab fees.
When I went to the financial aid office, they said, "Oh, you only need $1,200, but we'll let you take out $5,000." So fuck them.
Whose fault is that?
Theirs. I will continue to blame everyone else for my problems. No, but that's what I'm saying. Is like what they think I was going to spend it on.
But anyway, I was buying a new car and I was so excited. I bought this new car, Black Beauty.
New to oh.
Yeah, new to me.
Yeah.
I had saved up some more money. It was after college.
Because you didn't have a car at the time, right?
I had Betsy.
Oh, okay.
Which is a Chevy Cavalier.
Yeah.
It was
so you had the Chevy Cavalier.
It was gold color, but I guess Brennan would call it champagne at that time.
Champagne.
And
I forgot you bought your black car, your Black Beauty. Yeah, your Explorer.
Ford Escape.
Escape, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't save up that much money. I couldn't get to the Explorer.
But this was like a newer, like from the lot, wasn't it?
For me, no, I bought it off like an older lady, so she just needed to get rid of it, so it was in good condition, and it was like the best car I'd ever had.
Yeah,
like,
that's how I feel
other than the Mustang in high school, it was, yes.
That you drove into the ground. That's how I feel about the Camry.
I drove it. Okay, that's debatable.
That's how I feel about the Camry. Hey, I heard the stories about what you and Seth used to do in that car, driving it all around the parking lot, doing donuts. Rest in peace, Seth. But
that was in his car. So anyway, I remember thinking really long and hard if I wanted to give you this car, and I had
no idea at the time.
No, It was one of the
living in South
times you
Florida.
had come up to. I think I also probably had been drinking with you and like made some promises or whatever.
Yeah, that happens. We've talked about that on the show.
And I
Drunken
remember
promises in the Tasseff family household.
I remember, and I could be wrong, but I remember we were at the pool and I said, I'm going to help you out and I'm going to give you this car. But I swear to God, if you drink and drive with it, I'm going to come and take it from you. And I don't even think it was a year later. That thing was towed.
It wasn't. So I was staying,
and you never even got it out of the impound. And who knows, R.I.P. Betsy, I have no idea where
she
you're
got
at.
out of the impound. I think I was staying because one summer I stayed with Billy and Linda, and I think it might have been that summer because the summer before is when I became a true alcoholic, and I've told that story. And then the summer before that, I stayed on campus. So I think this was the summer I was staying with Billy and Linda, and you gave me Betsy. And I was super ecstatic about it, super excited. This was the first time I had a car since high school. So I had a car in high school, the Mustang. And then when I was done with school, I ended up I bought a Cavalier, 1989 Cavalier off of one of Mom's ex-husband's friends. And I used that to get down to South Florida. And then that one died. And then I ended up not having a car for like 2 years at school. And then eventually you gave me Betsy. And I was like, all right, rock and roll. I can now move off campus because I have a car. Like, it's going to be so much cheaper. Like, everything's great. And yeah, don't even think it was a year. And I got my very first DUI in Betsy. But
Didn't you maybe damage Betsy a little bit as well?
no.
The front end?
Oh, maybe. Not for the DUI.
I thought I remember seeing it and saying, Brennan, you better not be drinking and driving with this car. I swear to God.
Yeah, it was
what
one
did
of
I
those,
tell you?
It was one of those things where, I had never gotten into an accident, knock on wood. I'd never gotten into an accident.
You didn't hit
but
anybody.
yeah, like I'd bump curbs or I'd bump into like parking, like, the big parking pillars or whatever, just fucking tag those. But Betsy was paid off and she was mine and I didn't have to pay for her. So I was like, whatever, we'll run this baby into the ground. I remember the AC went out, which was probably the most expensive thing that ever happened because we had to get and by we, I mean Billy paid to get the compressor fixed.
I was going to
it.
say, who's we? I'm
Yeah.
surprised you didn't just let it roll.
But I remember I had it in South Florida, and yeah, it was probably a year later, maybe a little bit more or less, but got a DUI. Now, the story for that DUI is troubling because I was drinking at O'Brien's in South Florida. Shouts out O'Brien's. If you know O'Brien's. They had Thursday nights, buy one, get one.
Oh, Jesus.
On anything in the bar. So you could literally just pound fucking top shelf stuff for super cheap. Anyway.
I think that's probably illegal now.
I think it
because
is.
when I was in
Actually, I'm
college, they
almost
had that
positive
kind of
it
stuff
is.
too.
I'm almost positive it is because Chili's now, it's like you get like half off the drink. It's not buy one, get one anymore. It's like half off during happy hour.
Same concept.
Yeah, but they can't like feed you booze.
They can't, they don't want to.
Because I remember at Outback, when I first started at Outback in 2006, sidebar, it was buy one, get one on everything in the restaurant.
We had ladies' nights in college where you just drank for free.
Yeah, just whatever, yeah.
Yeah, like no cover, you just
Mellow mushroom?
drank for free everywhere.
Yeah, they don't do that kind of stuff anymore. But I remember we were at O'Brien's, and I was there with a girl from work, and I got hammered. I don't think she was that drunk. And then I went to drive home, and everything's going. And then remind you, I'm not playing college football anymore. I'm out of shape. I'm drinking pretty heavily, so it's.
So
one of
you
those
still had
things-
like a blood alcohol level of whatever from the night before.
Yeah.
you
Oh
even
yeah.
went out?
Probably.
Yeah.
And like I got off work, and it's in hindsight, it's so stupid. But I get in the car, and there's always cops outside of O'Brien's, and they just wait for people to leave who are hammered. Which is shitty because, the old thing where it's like, well, why don't they just tell you like, hey, don't get in your car, or give you a breathalyzer before you get in your car and say, hey, don't drive. Well, that doesn't make them any money. So I get into the car, and apparently they followed me a few miles from O'Brien's. But at the time, the car had power steering. It drives itself. And I had, and
This is a Chevy Cavalier, everybody, just so you know, from like probably
2000 Chevy Cavalier.
Was it a 2000?
2000 or
Wow, I didn't know it was
2001.
that new.
Yeah.
So it's not like the nowadays cars that kind of really do drive themselves.
Well, they don't kind of, they do. But well, you know what I mean? Like, as long as you have your hand like on the steering wheel a little level, it'll go straight. But I was at a red left arrow light, and I stopped, and then I'm trying to flirt with the girl next to me, and I'm like, we're kissing back and forth or whatever. And mind you, I'm out of shape and a disgusting person at this point, so I'm like, oh, this is like crazy that she's she's kissing me back. This is nuts. And then I turn and I notice the light is green. I don't know how long it's been green. As I start to go, whoop, whoop, behind me, they pulled me over for, I think, reckless driving or something because I didn't go fast enough at a green light.
And because they knew you were drunk?
Yeah. Well, so legally they can't pull you over because they know you're drunk, quote
Okay.
unquote. They have to have a reason to pull you over. Anybody who ever gets a DUI, you will get a ticket for something else with that DUI.
Okay.
Every time. Because it's very subjective. Like, I think they may or may not be drunk. Now, if you swerve, it's,
That- yeah,
that's
reckless
illegal.
driving
You can't
or-
serve
yeah.
reckless driving. So there's little things that you do because you're drunk that gives them reason to pull you over, but they can't just be like, I think that person's drunk and pull you over.
Yeah.
So I had committed no crime up to this point other than drinking and driving, but they didn't know that.
Yeah.
Or they knew it, but they, So they got me for reckless driving because I was stopped at a green left arrow light for too long. And I remember the first thing I thought was, Emily's gonna fucking
Really?
kill
You
me.
thought that?
Yeah.
I don't think you've ever told me that before.
Yeah, because I was.
I'm surprised you're alive today.
Yeah, it was. Well, and that was the
The
thing.
first thing I said, I will give you this car, no questions asked. You just can't have to promise me. Look me in the face and promise me. We were probably taking shots at the time, to be honest with you.
I had every intention not to drink and drive, but it was one of those things where you don't drink and drive, and then you go to a bar and you're like, and Uber's not a thing at the time, Lyft's not a thing.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's like, I don't really want to have to come back and get my car tomorrow. Like, I haven't had that much to drink, and you do it one time where you haven't had that much to drink, and you're like, oh, it's easy enough. It's close enough. It's 2 roads. Like, it's a side road, then a main road, and a main road. So it's 3 roads. It's like, it's not that hard. And then you just over time, and I had been drinking and driving for a while. I didn't start drinking until 17, 18, but I had drank and drove that whole time. So when I got the car, I was like, it's not that big of a deal to go from O'Brien's to my house.
Plus, you wanted to get this girl home.
Yeah, exactly. I remember.
How'd that work out for you?
I did. I went into work the next day, and she was like, she blamed herself, which shouts out to her. I was just like, that. It takes a lot of cojones to be like, I'm so sorry. It's totally my fault.
That's what we call an enabler or a codependent person.
Yeah, but shouts out to her. She's doing great now. But yeah. So I went the next day. My friend Colton came with me to the impound. He drove me there, and then he paid to get it out of the impound. And they're like, well, you can't drive it. You don't have a license, because I refused to blow. And I was like, okay, I guess I'll have him drive it. And he drove it down a block, and then we switched, and I drove it home.
Okay. See, I thought you never had gotten it out.
No, I had it out, and it was at my apartment for the longest time, and I sold it to a friend of mine, because
So you probably told me you never got it out because you sold it.
Yeah, maybe. But I remember, I was between going to court and everything, and I was still driving it, on occasion, if I had to get somewhere super important, super fast. But then I was like, I need to stop driving this car. This is gonna screw me if I get pulled over on a suspended license for a DUI. I'll go to jail. So I remember a friend of mine was looking for a car, just a little beater car to get from work and home, because him and his girlfriend were sharing a car at the time. And I remember selling it to him for $400. And at the time,
It's probably the right value at the time.
yeah, because it was a few years later. It had a bunch of dings to it and stuff. So I remember I sold it to him. It was $400 or $800. I was like, you can just have it. And because this was back in the day when we had paper titles, and I just signed it over to him and gave it to him. But that wasn't. I thought it was interesting though, because that was my first thought. I was like, fuck, Emily's gonna kill me.
Oh man, I was so mad. Because you can kill somebody for real. I mean,
Yeah, no, for sure. And that story actually ties in nicely with this, the other story I wanted to tell, which was when you bailed me out of jail when I got my second DUI. So that was when I was...
Speaking of enablers.
Yeah. So I was 28 at the time.
Wow, were you?
Yeah, because I got sober on my 30th birthday, and I got it in 2017. So I was 29 at the time.
Wow.
Yeah, so I got my second DUI. I've been arrested 8 times. 2 of them were DUIs. My second DUI was in September of 2017. And that was a trip because Alyssa and I had broken up. She had moved back to the West Coast, but we were trying to work it out. And by that, I mean I was trying to work it out. So I was having stints of like good stints of sobriety. So when we first broke up and she left, we did not talk. Like we talked like we were going to get back together, and we're like, oh, we're going to work this out. And I had stayed sober for a few months, and then I fell off the wagon, and then she was just like, I can't. This is what I was talking about, because we had agreed that if I could get a year sober without her being there, she would come back, and we would get back together. But again, if you don't get sober for you and you get sober for somebody else, you'll never stay sober. So I fell off the wagon, and I remember she, excuse me, she was like, that's it. I don't want to have anything else to do with you. So this was like in 2015, 16, probably 16. So then I'm drinking and doing crazy stuff. And then, months pass and maybe a year passes, and we decide like, well, I'd rather have her in my life as a friend than not at all. So we like start talking again, but strictly as like a friend. Like she's telling me about dates she's going on and guys that she's hanging out with, and I'm telling her about the stuff I'm doing. Now, mind you, obviously when I'm drinking, I never work out or anything. So I'm like letting myself go. Like I'm just not a very attractive person in my mind, and I'm gaining all this weight. And then there's the hurricane, and I've told this story before.
Yeah.
Go up to the Walmart in my car. My roommates beg me not to go. I get my DUI in a parking lot while my car is parked. So I get that DUI, and I remember the only number I knew by heart was Mom's and Alyssa's. So I called Alyssa, and I told her that I had canceled the insurance on the car, and as I was backing out of the Walmart parking lot, I had hit somebody's car. So I was in jail for driving without insurance.
Oh, I was going to say, you didn't do that, though. So
No,
you were
no.
trying to get her to bail you out
Well, not even that. I just didn't.
without telling her you had a DUI.
I didn't want to disappoint her.
Oh, okay.
I didn't want, because we had started talking as friends again, and I was trying to portray this identity of,
I got my shit together.
yeah, exactly. And that was one of those things where,
But I'm in jail. But I've got it together, girl.
we had talked as friends. But you have to understand, Alyssa
I'm
was very
kidding.
familiar with my situation where Brennan calling you from jail. It's like, well, let's hear him out. Let's hear him out. So we had gotten to the point where I think we were almost like starting to talk again. So I was like, I cannot tell her that I'd been drinking. Like, I can't.
Yeah.
Like, she'll never speak to me again if she finds out. So I told her I got into an accident. I was like, you need to get Emily's number or Hannah's number. Like, I need somebody to come bail me out. And then I called Mom, same thing. And through the grapevine of communication, Hannah tells Alyssa, like, oh my God, can you believe Brennan got another DUI?
Oh, my God. Well, I'm not surprised.
I'm not surprised either, but I called her back and she was crying on the phone.
You're making all these calls during jail?
Yeah, so when you go into the holding cell, you can make free calls from the holding cell phone. So I call her back, and and I'm the only one in the holding cell, and she was sobbing, and I was broken. I was like,
Aww.
You've got to be kidding. She goes, your sister told me. And I said, Emily doesn't talk to anybody. She goes, no, Hannah told me what happened. She goes, don't ever call me again. Like, I will talk with your mom and try to get you out of there, but don't ever call me again. Like, this is done. I trusted you. You said you were gonna figure it out this time. You've told me that a million times, but I'm done.
And not only that, you lied on top of it.
Yeah, and I lied, and that was probably, I think, the thing that hurt her the worst, because through everything that her and I had been through, I'd never lied to her.
Yeah.
I had manipulated the truth. But if she straight up asked me, like, are you drinking? Have you drank? Like, anything like that, I always told her the truth.
Yeah.
I would hide it. I would omit things. But if she asked me anything, I would always tell her the truth. So the fact that she asked me what happened and I straight lied to her was probably, I think, the hardest thing for her. And I remember I was just like, well, I guess I'm just going to hang out in jail. And at the time I was working. And I was like, fuck, we were closed for the hurricane, but like, I need to get back to work.
Had we talked at this time at all?
I don't think you and I had talked. I think I called Mom, and Mom was like, well, I don't have it. Like, you're going to have to talk to Emily. And then I remember calling you and being like, hey, normally I would just sit in here. I've done so much time in jail. It would not bother me to sit in here, but I actually have a job that
I was going to say, because you used that on me.
Yeah, I
have to get to work.
Because it was a serious thing, because I had just gotten promoted to manager. I hadn't started the training yet, but I had just gotten promoted to manager, and I was like, I cannot just not show up for my job.
Yeah.
Like, I have to be there. And you're like, okay, I'll bail you out. So
well, let's hold on for a second, because this was over a course of about 10 phone calls, I feel like.
Yeah.
I could be exaggerating that. But it was also guilt tripping me because the hurricane was coming. and I have to work. I promise I'll pay you back, or please just help me. I have nobody else, and I feel very bad for people all the time, and I always think the way to help them is not the appropriate way to help them in which to bail them out. Because I was like, he can't lose this job. If he loses this job, then he's gonna.
Oh, it would have gotten
and
a lot
Bubba
worse.
was like, you need to bail him out.
Had I lost that job, it would have gotten a lot worse.
I know. And I was like, I know this spiral. I know what's going to happen. I had to sign my house on that.
I know you did. Appreciate it.
And you laughed when you got out.
I appreciated it. I laugh. Come on, my
But
comedy's
yeah,
very
no,
dark.
that was hard.
Yeah, and it was interesting.
It was a
because-
lot of begging and pleading, though.
Well, and I also thought it was something simple, like you see in the movies where it's like, yeah, just come bail me out, and it's like, yeah,
no,
be
I
like
thought
that.
it was too. It's not. I've
It's-
never done that before.
So the movies,
nor will I ever again.
the
hopefully,
movies and
knock on wood.
TV make it sound way easier than it actually is, apparently.
Yeah.
So yeah, because that was the thing. So there was a hurricane. So you bailed me out like the next day. I didn't get released for 4 more days though, because of the hurricane. They wouldn't release me.
And I remember thinking, crap, he needs to get his job. Also, the hurricane, what if it floods? Like all these random things. Like it's the jail's not going to flood in Jacksonville, Florida. But in my mind, I'm trying to come up with excuses of why I should do
Well,
this.
yeah, so you ended up bailing. I remember, though, I was there for a day, and then you bailed me out. I think it was the next day. It might have been 2 days later.
It was pretty quickly because I remember
Yeah.
you having to get to work.
Yeah, it was. I think it was the next day, but then I ended up being in jail for a total of 5 days. So I was in there. I thought I was getting bailed out on the second day. They said, "Oh well, it takes about a day to process. You'll get bailed out tomorrow." So then it's tomorrow, which is the weekend. It's like Saturday, and they're like, "Oh well, because of the hurricane, we're not releasing anybody." No, that was Friday because then Saturday they're like, "Oh, same thing. We're not releasing anybody because of the hurricane." And then Sunday I was like, "The hurricane's fucking gone. Release me." And they were like, "Oh well, the judges don't come in on Saturday to sign your paper to release you." And that's when I started to lose it because you now at this point you had paid bail 3 days prior,
Yeah.
and I'm still in jail.
Yeah.
And so I was starting to lose my mind. And then finally, I think First Watch said we would be closed through Sunday. And then I think I got released on a Monday, but I happened to have that Monday off from work. So I called work. The first thing I did when I got out was call my job and be like,
Yeah.
was I supposed to work today? And they're like, no, you come in tomorrow. And I was like, thank God.
Well, and I remember, I think, and I could be wrong, but you also called me thinking that I was lying, that I didn't bail you out.
Yeah, because
I was like, I already signed my life away and paid the money, okay?
Well, because most of the corrections officers are dickheads. But like they're like, fuck you, like animal, like you're supposed to be in here. Don't worry about when you're getting out. But every once in a while you get one where I was like, hey, like I posted bail. Like why am I still here? And they would always tell me the same thing. They're like, well, if someone posted bail for you, you'll be out. It takes about 8 hours. You'll be out 8 hours from when they post. We legally, like I think one guy was like, we can't hold you if you've been bailed out. That's illegal. But obviously, extenuating circumstances, they were able to. But I honestly was like, did she just tell me she did and she didn't? Like, and come to find out, the DUI, that second DUI ended up being one of the best things that ever happened to me because the promotion was revoked and I almost went into managing at a place I didn't really like to be at in the first place.
Yeah.
And I really didn't want to get back into restaurant management, and it was for like pennies compared to what I make now in Prime Steakhouses, working 70 hours a week. So they rescinded the offer because they're like, oh, well, you have to have a license in order to go from store to store in case you need to get something. So after you get the whole DUI thing sorted, then we'll give you the promotion. And come to find out, after, everything that would then happen, I didn't want the promotion at all anyway.
Yeah, you would have been miserable and started drinking more.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
This vicious cycle.
So it ended up working out. You bailed me out. They had to put an ankle monitor on me. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah. I think that's a thing in Jacksonville now.
Well, it's a thing in Florida for DUIs.
I was going to say, I don't know if it's Florida in general,
It's a state
but
thing,
yeah, like even if it's your first one.
Yeah, now even if it's your first one, you have to get the ankle monitor. And even if it's your first DUI, you now have to get a breathalyzer, an interlock in your car, even for your first DUI. So when I got my first DUI, it was kind of like 6 months probation, like year-long suspension of my license because I refused to blow, and it was a year probation. and a year of no license, but I could get off my probation after 6 months if I completed everything, which I didn't. And
I was
going to
say, how'd that work out?
Yeah, I ended up getting arrested for 9 counts of violation of probation when I ran.
I remember that too, and I was like, all you had to do is finish it.
Yeah, after 6 months of
That's
probation,
all. Wasn't it like
left.
community service or something?
Yeah, well, no. So the 9 counts were the 6 months that I didn't show up, because I left after 6 months. So the 6 months I didn't show up, each time I didn't show up was a violation. Then I got a violation for not finishing community service. I got a violation for like not filling out specific paperwork or something like that. And then I got a violation for leaving the county because I was arrested in a different county. So yeah, 9 counts of violation of probation.
Wow.
Did some jail time. That was fun. But I also thought that was interesting because now, looking back on it, because we are coming towards the end of the episode, looking back on it, just now I have 3 years sober. The New York trip is a go. We are moving.
Yay!
We signed the lease. That's all done. What is your perspective? Because I find it interesting, from the outside looking in, and you've always been so close to it because you lived right down the street from me. So are you, as my older sister, a very protective and competitive person, are you comfortable with like, oh yeah, Brennan should do fine in New York? Or are you worried, or do you not think about it at all because
I'm nervous?
You don't think about other,
I don't
selfish.
think about other people.
No, I was gonna say the way I wanted to word that is I'm selfish and I think everyone thinks about me, but you're just like, no, I don't think about you like that all the time.
So I will say you have done you are a different Brennan than you were 3 years ago. Yeah. You have done so much work on yourself. You are mature. I noticed, mature enough. I noticed for a man, I was kidding. I'm totally kidding about that. Edit that out. I noticed that you are caring. You've always been a very caring person, but you recognize, a lot more and are a lot more empathetic about things in the world and realize that it's not just centered around you for the most part.
Yeah, difficult thing to
So
learn.
I would say I'm a little nervous because it's going to be stressful and you're going to be in in that environment all the time. But I completely 100% think that you are in the perfect place physically and mentally to do it. I mean, you work in those environments already.
Yeah.
And even if it's slow to start, I don't doubt for 1 minute after a scene where you were and where you've come to be, I don't doubt for 1 minute that
I was fixing mine. You're fine.
Oh, I don't doubt for 1 minute that you're not going to take it seriously and that you're going to screw up. If you do, you do, and we'll figure it out. But I really don't. I have all the confidence in the world that you're going to do well.
Well, I appreciate
and I will
that.
tell you, if you were telling me a year ago you were going to New York, or if you went to New York and COVID had broken out, I would have probably been really nervous. But
yeah,
you did your due
done.
diligence and you've stuck to it. And I watched you go through COVID and not relapse. And
yeah, which is actually shocking. Now, when you it's a day at a time, but hindsight, it's like, fuck, I was home getting unemployment for like.
Well, I think a lot of people turned
days.
into alcohol because of it.
Well, yeah. So alcohol sales went up like 400%, and then we had a lot of people in my circles that fell off. A couple people died because
it's unfortunate.
They were just like, well, I got nothing to do. I'm getting paid to stay at home, so I'll just drink. And some of them drank themselves to death. Some of them overdosed.
Well,
and
you couldn't go to the gym for so long. You couldn't do anything.
Luckily, I found a gym that was open because the guy was like, this is my gym. I built this with my bare fucking hands. I'm not closing.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I want to say you will beat those odds. I really honestly don't think that you are. I am nervous in a sense just because of what I've seen. But no, I think that I'm fairly confident that you're going to be great. And I honestly don't worry for you because you found a way to hustle for the last 3 years and figure it out and pay your bills and, get what you needed to get done. And you've been in those environments, like I said before, and I'm not that worried.
Well, I appreciate that. I did want to mention, talking about that second DUI, this will probably be the title of the episode.
The second DUI?
No.
Oh.
I remember because I was 29 and it was in September, and then a few months later, you took Hannah, my twin sister, to Vegas for her 30th birthday.
I did.
And I remember I got so
I used
mad.
a lot of points. I'm not going to lie. I did have a lot of American Express points.
But I remember getting so mad. Like, I turned 32, and you said, Brennan, I just bailed you out of jail. That's the best birthday present I could ever give you.
I bailed you out of jail.
Yep.
It was probably about the same price, too.
That's what you kept saying, yeah.
Yeah.
So the title of the episode is going to be,
Birthday bail money.
yeah, something like that. I had it earlier and I didn't write it down, but it's going to be something about that. So, Emily, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
This was a fun stroll down memory lane.
It was awesome.
Thank you, everybody, again, so much for listening. We're in the process of moving right now, Savannah and I. So next week we have one more banked episode coming up. And then after that, I will be in New York City, hopefully getting some new guests from New York on the podcast. Check out everything Brennan T Comedy on all social media, BrennanTComedy.com. I'm going to start posting up some more dates of shows in New York City once I establish myself up there and figure out where the fuck to do comedy. Check out the merch store, BrennanTComedy.com/merch store. Get your Ex Drinking Buddy merch. You've got some merch, Em?
I do. I got it. Everybody get it.
Yep. My super big family. Only one person has any merch from
And
my
I got
show.
the cheap shirt.
Yeah, you did.
I plan on buying more.
Yeah. Everyone keeps telling me that, but I check the sales. Nothing's happening. Also, subscribe on Patreon, patreon.com/Brennan Tasseff. Thank you again so much for listening, and we will talk to y'all next week.